Over these last days, there's been stories told about, and the question asked, what's the difference between a charm, an amulet, and a talisman? So let's dive a little deeper to see if we can glean why it is that this seemingly occult inquiry was initiated. First, there's a personal anecdote that's relevant to our endeavor. In the 1980s, I spent 7 years with and 2 years visiting whenever possible a little Japanese woman whose real name was Flora no Mi, but we called her the Divine Mother. Some years before, in the 70s, a person came to her door who told her that she was a messenger, because Divine Mother had been chosen to take the power of the great saint Ramakrishna to complete his work on earth. Now this being, although she was dressed in the garb of a woman, was totally androgynous. Of course, I was not there during those years, but I saw a photograph of this being, and to look at her, you could not tell whether she was a male or a female, except that she was dressed as a woman. And this being stayed with the Divine Mother for 1 month. And after that 1 month, she knelt down in front of Divine Mother and thanked her for allowing them to use her body. And then the messenger gave her a key. That key was in the form of a word. And this word, or key as it was referred to, could open the consciousness. So this story is relevant to our inquiry. And then there's the story of an old and very wealthy merchant who was about to leave his body. So he called his only son to him, and he said, "My son, take this ring." And he gave him a ring. And he said, "Take this ring, and when I die, you are to personally, without anyone accompanying you, undertake my burial, and place this ring in my hand." Now, although his request was outside all the traditions of the day, the son, who loved and revered his father very greatly, did exactly what he was told. He took his father's body without anyone accompanying him, and he laid him to rest and placed the ring in his hand before shoveling the dirt into the grave. Now, in a place far distant from there, a young and very beautiful maiden who had come to marriageable age and whose parents were seeking suitors for her, could find no one suitable. All of the suitors who came, she rejected. But then one night, as she was sleeping, she had a dream. An old man came to her and said, "You are destined to marry my son." Now, when the maiden woke up, she told her parents about this dream, and they just pooh-poohed it. "Oh, that's just a dream, that's just rubbish." But the next night, the maiden had the same dream. "You are destined to marry my son in a far-off place." Again, she told her parents, and again they pooh-poohed her. "This is just a dream, just rubbish, forget it." But the next night, she had the dream again. The old man came to her and said, "You are destined to marry my son, and you will need to go to such and such a place, and to give proof to my son of the relevance of this story, take this ring." The next morning, when she woke up, in her hand was a ring. When she went to her parents with this ring, they were finally convinced that her dream was true. And so her father gave her silverware and diamonds and gold, and with a trusted servant sent her off to find the place that had been designated. Now, when they arrived at this far distant city, the maiden sent away her trusted servants and put on the garb of a man. And then she went and rented a shop. And when the customers came, she displayed all the goods that had been given to her by her father, and then she would show them the ring. But nobody reacted to what they had been shown. And after some time, the maiden thought, "This is very, very strange. How can I find this man who I'm destined to marry?" So she went to a broker and said that she decided to sell the shop. And he said, "Well, I happen to know a very wealthy young merchant who may be interested in buying this shop." So a meeting was arranged. And as soon as the young man, the young merchant, entered the shop, the maiden, dressed as a man, knew that this was the one. But she did not show him the ring. But after some negotiations, the young merchant, who thought that he was speaking to a young man about his own age, invited the maiden to dinner at his house. And so she went along to the house and met the young merchant's mother, and they had a very fine dinner and spent some time discussing the shop and its contents. But then the maiden said, "But I have something that is more precious than anything that one can buy." And when she took it out, the ring, and showed him, he almost fainted to the ground with shock, immediately recognizing his father's ring. And his mother also came and recognizing the ring. Now the maiden told the story of how this came about, but the young merchant was very perplexed because he thought he was speaking to another young man. But then the maiden let down her hair And immediately the young merchant saw her beauty and, of course, as with these stories, immediately fell in love, and so the story ends in the usual way. Now, we can ask ourselves, the question's been asked, what's the difference between a charm, an amulet, and a talisman? And we've made some inquiries about that, because we know that each of these has an occult meaning. And when we delve deeply into them, we can recognize that we've worn charms, we've worn amulets, and we've worn talismans over our lifetime. And if we inquire deeply into this, we can perhaps even recognize why we chose a certain charm or a certain amulet or a certain talisman. And that's all very interesting background to occult knowledge and putting things into place for us. But now, if we look at this anecdote and this story, it puts another light on the situation, doesn't it? So we do have to dive deeper within ourselves to recognize what the connection is. And maybe in doing so, we can bring together what we've considered to be the occult level of life and a deeper level of life. Could that be the purpose of what's been happening here? Maybe, and maybe not. We'll have to see as the days go on. But for the moment, the question can be asked, what is it that arises out of this anecdote and this story today? What's your experience of these amazing kind of miraculous connections? What was the connection between a messenger coming with something that died almost 100 years before? All right, it was a word, but a word is no different from what was said to be a key, is it? And no different from a charm, an amulet, and a talisman. All are forms of energetics, energies. Isn't it so? So if we can make this connection, and this story of a ring, how does it fit for us? How does it fit for us? But for the moment, what rises up out of this story today for you? Oh, phew, I'm not out of a job.
Listening and taking guidance.
Pardon?
Listening and taking guidance.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Other things that are
Not shunning anything at all, huh?
It looks like the charm is all the energetic force that attracts inside.
Okay.
And then the amulet would be the one that goes for protection or going outside, and the talisman is the unification.
Okay. Well, this is a wonderful way to describe it. So you put it together with perhaps what it is that arises from today, and we'll see what we get alchemically from this process.
It was interesting because just yesterday I was speaking to somebody who actually received touching through dreams.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because that's what the story was about.
Uh-huh.
I don't have that. I don't do it that way. But
Mhm.
this person does.
All right.
Yeah, and so she's constantly receiving guidance through dreams,
Okay.
and so and she remembers them, and so then she follows them,
Mm-hmm.
and she says it works well.
Right.
We all receive guidance in different ways.
Okay. What about this manifestation? There are many stories about that. The apple under the pillow, or the leaf that's found in your boot, or whatever it is. There are many, many stories about this. What's our experience? Well, there's more stories.